What's up, everyone? Welcome to the latest episode of Leaders Unfiltered. We are so excited to have our guests on today's show. And I have to tell you that today's guest, and Neha specifically, this has been something we've had in our head now for almost a year when we had the opportunity to meet at Women of Work last year. So, very excited to talk through a lot of different things, but the core of our message in today's episode is going to be female and women representation in technology. So one of the things that we really wanted to bring light on as we kick things off and really start to get our thinking gears in order is what that stat actually looks like. So what if we told you, as part of today's episode, that nearly 30% of the workforce is composed of women for the technology sector? So let's just take a moment to think about that. How we make up over 50% of the population, but in technology, we represent less than 30. And there's plenty of reasons why we can attribute to those, but unfortunately, sometimes millions of qualified candidates are not brought to the table because of certain biases or because of certain misconceptions of how women can work in tech by their peers. So we decided to showcase that today, and that is going to be the essence and the ethos of today's discussion and the ethos behind Make Tech Purple. And I'm so excited to have Neha and Kaden on today's show. Do you guys want to do a quick intro on each one of you? And just again, thank you so much. And thank you for bringing light to certain issues. And thank you for being on today's show.
Thank you so much, Angela. Congratulations on the big job. Thank you for having me here and giving me the opportunity to talk about Make Tech Purple and to make an impact through it. This is a hair on fire problem with no real solution. Let's just be real. The infrastructure for women to return to work is not broken, it's non-existent. And, let me just kind of go over some data points here. 2.5 million women left the workforce during COVID, and 73% want to re-enter. The overall picture is 51% women comprise of the total workforce, with only 26 to 28% in technology. And in 2026, there will be a 1.2 million tech talent shortage. And this is a huge 400 billion workforce development market talent issue with no real specialized solutions for career breaks. The story behind Make Tech Purple, just a little bit about my background. I've been in the staffing tech solutions industry for 25 plus years. And as a young recruiter, there was a recurring problem. A lot of my female candidates were coming to me saying, Neha, I have the background, I have the degree, I have the education, I prepped super well. Why didn't I get this offer? And it hit me really hard emotionally. I was feeling hurt. And as a young recruiter, I didn't understand what was going on, the biases at play. I would nudge my account manager, I would nudge the hiring manager, but not get any real response. So when I grew older and a little bit wiser and found my voice, I felt like I needed to do something. And 2019, I got the opportunity and platform to start Make Tech Purple. And we looked internally inward because I manage recruiting and delivery. I was working with my recruiters. I said, let's do something. We curated a pool of female technologists and started to apply the Rooney Rule to send more women candidates in the mix in front of hiring managers and educating them. And sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't work. And we were able to move the needle from 26% of female deployed candidates to 46% in a matter of 4 years.
Amazing. Thank you. I love the throwback to your early days as a recruiter and what you were seeing. And of course, this inherent emotional pull that became a part of that process. So I appreciate you giving us some background on how the origin story started with Make Tech Purple. Kaden, can you give the audience a little bit more about your background and how that ties with Neha?
Yeah, so funny enough, my background had nothing to do with staffing. It's from nonprofit healthcare management. So I was there for about 15 years. Um, and as a lot of people are familiar, or maybe some aren't, it's very female led. So healthcare is very female focused. And I worked in developmental delayed healthcare with autism spectrum and with intellectual disabilities with adults and with children. So very heavy female presence in our leaders and in our entire operation. And then ended up over on the staffing side with an MSP and then now with BayOne. But what brought me into BayOne was Make Tech Purple.
Wow.
The investment there, and Neha was one of my first meetings that I had like within the company, and I was a little bit nervous about meeting her, but then it was right. It was really great right away, and just I really wanted to be a part of really pushing this to be more fair and be more representative because I've worked with such strong women, and also know the pain of healthcare and education when it comes to financial gain and stability. And with a lot of the fields that are female led or focused being underpaid, stagnant wages, and things really developing. I mean, we're going full force into tech. Everything is moving into tech, and women are being left behind, not because of skill gaps, not because of lack of leadership, but just because of lack of visibility and with unconscious and with conscious bias.
Mm.
So I wanted to be a part of what we're doing here and really not only educate companies using my privilege as a white man
Mhm.
and really pushing this in and being an ally to this, but really just this is how we work smarter. This is how we work future proof. You know, we need a strong workforce with everyone involved. That's how we have a strong economy and a strong country. So that's a little bit
Love
high
that.
level of where I wanted to kind of be with Day One.
Well, I didn't know that Make Tech Purple was one of the reasons that helped make that deciding factor in joining Bay One. I think it's inspiring to see what you guys are doing, and I want to double down on this. Let's take a couple of steps back here before we can talk about how we've made some strides forward and some of the results that y'all have yielded through the Make Tech Purple initiative. But maybe you guys can give us some examples, right? As an audience, and I'm speaking for myself maybe on this, I've recruited, but never to the extent that y'all have, right? So I would love if you guys can sprinkle in some use cases, right? Sprinkle in some use cases on giving us the big picture perspective, why y'all think this tech gap remains, why there is a gender parity that we're seeing. Neha, you've given us some wonderful examples in the future, in the previous response. Maybe you can double down on those for us to help educate the origin story behind Make Tech Purple and how this inherent quality has existed for most of your career within recruiting.
Yeah, I mean, the re-entry bias, right? And tech
Mhm.
moves so
Which, by
fast.
the way, would not just be exclusive to tech, right? This is something that just exists
Oh,
for women re-entering the workforce.
absolutely. I mean, uh, and because we're so specific about tech, tech just moves so fast, right? six
Yeah.
month break can be like a long time. There is a skills currency issue, assumption that, this person doesn't have the skills, and it's a fact that a hiring manager is going to hire a person with less experience than a person with a gap. And
Mhm.
this is discrimination. And even though, in the current political environment, the SEC used to mandate stats on diversity metrics and no longer is a requirement, but equal opportunity is still a requirement. And you can't discriminate based on gender, age, and also resume gaps. That's a bias. But the stark reality is, and I'll throw a number at you here, 43 to 48% organizations with an application tracking system are filtering out resumes of people that have the skills but have the gap.
Wow.
And so this is a problem. And in terms of some sort of real life examples, I can go over, we have a program and initiative called Ignite, Catalyze, and Launch that helps women specifically from a vulnerable background upskill. Because I can't tell you, Angela, how many people that I talk to and hear from, they've had a gap, they're lost, they don't know which way to go. So what I do at my end is do a skills gaps analysis and tell them, okay, you've got about 3 years of background in marketing. Maybe the ROI is in taking these courses and upskilling to product management and get you an entry-level opportunity in product management. And um, through the Ignite Catalyze Launch program, I could just kind of highlight one success story. We had a graduate from the Python cohort. She was able to secure a job at Pinterest as a compliance analyst. And the skills that she learned through the cohort, she was able to use those skills to automate certain tasks that the homogenous team was just not sure how to handle. And it improved the turnaround time in terms of outcomes, 63% faster in terms of the efficiency, and just overall 20% higher team efficiency. So these women bring problem solving skills, they bring resilience, and they also look at things very differently. And that is one of the examples that I love to sort of talk about, because she's done phenomenally well by acquiring that Python skill set.
I'm sure that's really exciting, and also humbling, and just being able to contribute to somebody's life trajectory in such an impactful way, and how that started by reassessing and repositioning that person's skill set, which, let's be honest, is something that is not just available or unavailable for women, right? These are qualities that I'm sure you guys go through all the time, regardless of the background or the gender. Kaden, I'd like to point it to you on, from your perspective, why is this a persistent challenge? And what have you seen from a use case example that you potentially were able to contribute to change somebody's life because of it?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest things that people talk about but don't really have solution for is interview bias. So when you're interviewing someone who looks like you or comes from your same background, you're like, "Yeah, they're perfect. Yes," because we're all a little egocentric and we all think like this person's going to be, the person because you align. And I think one of the biggest things we did were education to the companies where it's like, "Hey, are you aware of this? It is a big deal. We think you should diversify your interview panels, have different things that more with the assessment line of like, we're looking at what the skills are, not who they look like or what they bring here, or, the old bias that women are more emotional and not as critical thinking, even when they come with the same skill set. So it's like, well, this job needs a degree and this and this and this. She has these things. There's no merit loss here. Like there's no issue here with the skills. So what is it? Is it because you want another dude bro, like, you can be friends with and go golf with, or like, what is it? And we had some companies that pushed back a little bit and didn't really take accountability for that being an issue, even though their numbers showed different. And we had other companies like Expedia who listened, and we were able to expand the footprint of women in tech roles there, in good position tech roles, not just entry level roles, above 60%.
Wow.
So they were really moving through. We did a similar thing with Levi's. It's on the retail end, but there's IT roles and different things for design. And we were able to have actually I think it was an 83% footprint there with women in high paying level roles, and three of them converted full time. So when you have companies that want to do better,
Hmm.
that recognize there is an issue, we might not know what it is, we might not want to call it out, but we're going to say that there is an issue and we're going to look for guidance on how to correct it. We're going to do better as a company. It's just smarter. Women, they bring higher retention, They bring in different, more level cultures, typically from a male-led culture, and you just have more buy-in. And when you have a company that has that culture being moved forward, you have people who want to stay, and you have people who will continue to grow and give that loyalty to the company, which is good for everyone. And then providing the opportunity for the contractor or for that demographic pays off to all of us as community members, because we're not only providing opportunities of growth and financial stability for that woman,
Mm-hmm.
but also for her family, for her children, and setting a precedence of this is the norm. Moving that needle to what is normal is not 26% representation. And the more we move it down, the more impact we have long term.
That's so powerful. I think that the Levi and the Expedia use cases show semblance to the fact that that stakeholder alignment and buy-in and the investment of simply recognition, regardless of how the outcome was produced. We want to look forward and make this applicable change because it might be the right thing to do, or because we really want to draw on some of those incentives and positive characteristics that you briefly touched on that I'd love to dive into a little bit further at the later part of today's recording. But one of these stats that you just called out, and Neha, perhaps you can help us shed some more light. 26% of the submissions that you guys had at the beginning of this program was women. And in a result of over 4 years or so, 46% of those submissions are now women. So you guys saw an actual quantitative application of success. Why? Right? Simply put, how did you guys implement that through the stepping stones that helped make that statistic actually reach that almost 50-50 mark?
There's a lot of passion and drive behind it.
Yes. Tears, joy, all the things.
Yeah, I mean, working with the recruiting teams, just stressing on using the Rooney Rule, which is used in sports. So if you're sending 4 candidates for a full stack developer role, we made a conscious effort of sending 2 female candidates. So the team was constantly curating a pool of qualified female candidates. And so that moved the needle. And I'll just cite one example of a technology company that we worked with. And we worked with their PMO, and we were finding program managers, project managers to run their, mobile applications and web projects. And they were hemorrhaging people. It became a real sort of attrition issue.
Right.
And it was through the roof. The spend was really high on recruiting and training, and then also a loss of delay in, delivering the projects and the timelines not being met. And it was a really frustrating situation. The leadership was questioning us, hey, what's going on? But we were kind of stuck in this really bad cycle because they kept hiring people that had similar backgrounds and experiences, but just, I would put it as a boys, club with a very male-dominated culture. And we just proposed something bold. We said, hire more women, right? Look at this floor. It's just full of, males here. And that first year, we were able to put in 10 women in the mobile and web apps groups. And within a period of 18 months, the attrition dropped 10%. And why? Because the team dynamics changed. Women communicate very differently, and they also collaborate very differently. They bring different styles to de-escalate issues. And so that kind of had an impact on that toxic work culture. So the retention problem became like a cultural transformation. And, they also recognized that this boys club thing was a liability. So that's one of the examples I can cite that I'm very proud about, where we were able to move the needle. And I still keep in touch with those program managers. They're my friends.
Yeah.
And it's one of the proud moments in my career.
You guys, I love that y'all are backing up everything with actual use cases and examples of what y'all have been able to do. And this is why we have these conversations so that a listener can be inspired to do the same. And we are driving towards incremental change that lead to the same goal. So kudos to you guys. And I just had to pause to commend you. And I can see the passion that you bring to it. It gives me chills and it makes me just really happy that we have today and this forum to be able to express this. And the next question I think is just as important in all of this. It's how you guys partner with high school and middle school girls and get them ready to know what it is to code. And Kaden, I'm going to give this one over to you. And I want you to perhaps give us, a little bit more of a lay of the land on why it's important to start inspiring the next generation early. And maybe you can speak to that, as a parent. And Neha, I'd love for you to also chime in on this and give us some examples and some experiences of what you guys have done with the younger generation to get them propped up for success on this future fast-paced trajectory of technology. So Kaden, why don't you just give us a little bit more on why this was an important factor for the program?
Yeah. So, as you know, being a young woman, or for me being a young man, and going into school, there's a lot of different routes you can take. And a lot of
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of formed by what you see and what you're used to seeing,
Mm-hmm.
what's in media and what's in everything else. And a lot of girls get left behind when it comes to STEM or technologies because there's not a lot of representation that they're seeing or that they're aware of, or even the way it's talked about, or like boys are better at science, boys are better at this, like girls are better at this, and it's just made up nonsense, like it's all make believe. So getting to children younger, and this is, boys and girls, just getting to children younger and letting them see that there are these options, and really giving them the representation of you can do this, and then an outlet for here's a program if you want to learn more. It's not pushing or indoctrinating anything, it's just giving it the availability that this is something you could do. And you see children, like I have two young boys, one's very interested in shiny things and the other one's very very analytical and very sassy, but giving them, they're going to choose different paths, but letting the young girls know that this is a path that you can take, and it's not going to be more difficult, it's not going to be riddled with different things that you're not capable of, I think is very important. And as they start seeing more women leaders, we are seeing it now on LinkedIn as adults, but they need to see that,
Mm-hmm.
in their young time. So Neha knows more about exactly what we've done with the schools in California, but being a parent and hoping to have a little girl eventually, I'm really glad that this exists. And like I said before, jobs are all moving to the tech. We need
Mm-hmm.
to have fairness and a split of visibility there.
I love
Yeah,
that. And I think
and
it does begin when they're
pays
early.
more.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Neha.
sorry, Angela. Uh, Yeah, and tech pays more, right? I mean, those
Yeah,
jobs just
yeah,
Yeah,
pay more.
leaps
STEM
and bounds
jobs pay
more.
more. Yeah. Yeah, I'll just kind of go over my lived experience, Angela.
yeah.
I'm gonna, go back 25 years. I was pursuing a computer science degree while working full time, because that's the path that I wanted to take. I wanted to support my family. My mom, she was an educator too, and I just soon realized that computer science was not a field for me because there were no role models. My class was all boys and one other girl, I kid you not. And my professors were all male. And I'm like, this is not for me. This is really boring. Like, I'm gonna die. This is just not inspiring in any way. And I'm somebody who needs to feel it and be inspired. So I was out of there so quick and pursued finance and MIS. But when I started Make Tech Purple, I had this like thing in the back of my head that young girls feel that way. And the needles moved, and we have a lot more role models and now than we ever did in technology. But let's face the fact, it's still 26%. The SEC doesn't require reporting on metrics for diversity. You don't have to have a female director now on your board. It's not required. So I felt like something needed to be done, and at my scale, like in my area, in the Bay Area, I went to Amador, and so we partnered with Pleasanton Unified, and I worked with Girls Who Code at the high school and the middle school. And, BayOne's so generous. We sponsored scholarships for girls. We also had an internship. It was more of a training program during summer. We had girls from high school come in, work on our tech score product, internal product. It was just so gratifying to see their journey, how they grew in confidence, and the features they came up with for the product, actual features that have been implemented. So it's just a really great experience, and I, would love to continue to work with more high schools and show girls this is a career for you. This is how on the job, things work in a corporate setting, so they feel like this is doable, this is possible.
Yeah. Just last night, I was having dinner with my sister-in-law, and she's the youngest of eight. She's 16. And we do these conversation starters. And I asked her, like, well, conversation, I asked my 3-year-old, what do you want to be? He said, police, right? I asked my daughter, what do you want to be? She said, doctor. We asked her, and she couldn't answer. She said, I don't know. And I was like, what about, something in tech? She was like, tech? You think so for me? And it was almost like even now, right? Just those are small nuances that I think we don't take into consideration of how some folks can disqualify themselves just for what they perceive as I'm not fit, I'm not capable because of what I externally or subconsciously understood that to be, right? And you're a product of that too, just being what your experience was, thinking you weren't going to be able to do this, just because of what your positioning was in a group that didn't look like you, right? So there are, a lot of odds, and I want to now, truly being unfiltered, let's talk about the environment that we're in right now, right? Let's talk about DEI, was it what it was 2 years ago, where it is now, and let's utilize this time to say, if you had, which you do, it's right now, the opportunity to indirectly speak to leaders within programs that are wondering DEI, is it make sense? Is it a risk that we're taking? What would you say to them? And how would you position this initiative beyond the DEI, but the actual tangible results as well?
This is a great question. um, I have so much to say about it, Angela. It's like we were touching upon the meritocracy paradox, right? Like Kaden
Mhm.
had brought it up. It is so fascinating and kind of counterintuitive because organizations now are talking about, oh, we're going to hire based on merit, not demographics. But they're actually becoming more biased than less. Because hiring managers, they think, oh, I'm being completely objective, and they stop watching their own unconscious bias at play. They unconsciously kind of adjust their standards to favor the candidates that remind them of themselves. And their brain is working overtime to make their preferences feel rational and merit based. It's like you're driving, you have blind spots, but you're very confident. You feel like, oh, I don't need to check my mirrors. And you don't check your mirrors. And what I want to say to the leaders that will be watching this podcast is there is a high quality, talented pool that traditional recruiting overlooks. Women with demonstrated resilience, problem solving skills, and just fresh perspectives like Merdula did at Pinterest. And I want to go over this. We had this magical day on Friday where my product management cohort graduated, 6 women from a vulnerable background, tough stories. Um, it still gives me goosebumps. I was so inspired over the weekend, just like so inspired that I couldn't sleep. My kids are like, Mama, what's going on? um, it's it just and the leaders were there answering questions, and one of the girls brought up, so how do I tell my story without telling my story? I've had this gap. There is a perception that I am not good enough. And I really appreciate Sneha Narahali, who's the head of product at Sephora, her perspective. And this is what she said. She said, You were not chilling on the beach for the last 5 years. You were solving some very, very hard problems in your personal life. But my position is that I need to get shit done. Sorry. I need to
That's
get
okay. It's Leaders Unfiltered.
okay, good. I need to get shit done. So you need to come when you are in a room with me interviewing. You can tell me I was solving problems the last 5 years. I can solve your problems as well. I'm here to get shit done as well. And this is what I have learned in the last 5 years. And you kind of use it as your weapon. Because I could tell you these women have been stress tests like no other candidates will be.
Wow. Wow. That's incredible. And what a call out, right? To utilize the art of suffrage and struggle on application of business objective, right? Because at the end of the day, that's the only thing that matters is the business objectives and are we going to reach them and how do those skills lend to it? And going through and you've spoken to me on some of the struggles that some of these women have gone through and being able to persevere through that really can lend to the actual objective at hand, right? Kaden, do you have any thoughts around that?
Yeah, I mean, these women have come from all kinds of backgrounds, these specific women, but in general, women struggle with much more stacked against them in their personal lives and affairs than men do, and have to balance and have to be more adaptable, more resilient, even on the best of days, as a parent,
Mm-hmm.
as a leader, as a teacher, as anything. That's just how our society is. Speaking in the unfiltered space and like kind of where we're going or what we're seeing, we're trying to be pushed by them taking DEI away. And it's like DEI, we can name it anything we want to name it. It's been around forever, okay? With equal opportunity employment, with all this other stuff, like through the 60s and 70s and all these things. It's important. We know it's important. We know that there's under represented groups, and it's through no fault of their own. It starts with a lack of opportunity and continues through. And we've done a lot of work in the job market to correct that over the last 10 years. And we've seen tremendous innovation and value from that, from opening up those doors from women through the LGBTQ plus community, through disability, through disability representation and having those adaptions and everything else. We have seen wonderful, explosive, creative work in every different capacity. And to simply say that because DEI, which I don't even know how you could be against like equity, how you could actually say like, I don't like equity. Equity is a bad idea. But inclusion, absolutely not. But it's silly. It's just flat out silliness. And it's trying to create this nostalgia. It's trying to go to this nostalgia of like men work and women stay home and this and this. And then also where we see diversity being almost synonymous is with people of color. So it's not even just women who benefit greatly from DEI initiatives or from and have for decades now, but it really seemed focused in the current environment on people of color. And that by default, somehow there was some extra hand up, some extra thing, a lack of skill, a lack of which is just simply untrue. I mean, it got so bad, Angela, that people were calling African American pilots DEI hires, pilots saying that they weren't comfortable. And it's like, that is the silliest thing, but that's the environment that we're pushing against right now. So I think staying level and staying very, here are the stats, here's the data, and talking because you're not going to get anywhere talking to a wall. If someone's made their mind up that this is the opposite of merit, right? Like DEI, they're opposite. I'm targeting people to speak to and to get visibility for and do these things with people who know that that's important, who are doubled down in continuing forward with this, and who want to make our country stronger and more visible for all of our citizens. So
Wow. The revert back to look at the actual statistics of what this can, again, quantitatively produce and yield is the neutral perspective here, right? Regardless of the opinions, regardless of the oversight, regardless of the times that we're living in, this is a derivative that can be attributed to these sorts of characteristics. And if that is in alignment, then we are all, riding on the same wavelength. All right, so we are wrapping up today's podcast, and we have this thing. And if you've watched the podcast, we do a Chat GPT thing, right? Today was Copilot, by the way. So Copilot is the one that came up with y'all's question today. If every tech leader in the world was listening right now, think about all those hiring managers before in the past. What's the one mindset shift they must make to finally close this gap? What is that one adoptive shift they must make to close the gap? Neha.
I love it. So don't try to fix the women. Let's try to fix our systems. It's not a pipeline problem, it's a recognition problem. We are overlooking an extraordinary talented pool of women returners, and they can perpetuate innovation. But we measure potential through the lens of these traditional credentials and conventional backgrounds with meritocracy paradox in play. And this is what keeps me up at night. Like, if we don't close this gap, we're not just missing out on business opportunities and outcomes. We're actually perpetuating a cycle where we're locking half the population out of the most influential times of our industry, tech industry, where there is a market shift, there is an AI transformation happening. So that's something to think about.
It's heavy. It's heavy considering that we are at the dawn of a new technological era, right?
Another statistic, 22% women in AI. Why is that? And then also the interesting times, Angela, there's like a corporate contradiction, right? Legally, you can't discriminate, but there is discrimination happening where there are biases at play when your ATS systems are taking the qualified candidates out of the mix, 43 to 48%. And then politically, you can't promote diversity. So it is like a bind, right? It is hopefully just, it will play itself out. But yeah, those are my thoughts on it.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I think that was a perfect summation of today's episode, and the climate that we're living in, and the contributions that we can play by bringing light to it, at least through these dialogues and through these conversations. Kaden, is there anything that you wanted to wrap up with?
if I had one thing to say, would be to take a step back and look at where we want to be, right, as a country, where we want to be. Do we want to be a prosperous country that has good, innovation and that's moving forward in a globally competitive environment? Or do we want to take 60 years? Do we want to step 60 years back? Where not a lot of good things are coming, Do we want to stay competitive globally? Or do we want to stagnate and isolate? Like, that's really where it comes to, because we are going to fall behind. Just in a business perspective, like, it's bad business to cut women out of the conversation and out of the growth that, innovation and technology is providing.
Yeah, definitely. Oh man, tremendous episode, you guys. Thank you, Neha. I'm so happy that we had the chance to do this. Kaden, I appreciate you being the glue that stuck this mission together on today's episode. These are vital. I'd love to be able to continue the conversation. If any of the listeners are going to Women of Work in Minneapolis, we want to have the opportunity, the forum, and the environment to be comfortable to talk about these sorts of issues that are at hand. And I just appreciate you guys. I appreciate what you're doing. Make Tech Purple. Certainly check it out. I feel like every time I learn more about it, there's never a moment where I'm not like goosebumps and feeling it, you know? So I think that the best way we learn is through real life application or through others. So thank you guys, sincerely.
Thank you, Angela, for the opportunity. Every little chance to talk about it moves the needle in my book. So I, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate you inviting us to talk about it, and I look forward to meeting you. Every time I meet you, I get this warm hug that is just amazing and warms me up.
Girl, Latina. That's all I gotta say.
Thank you for your energy, and you're incredible, and good luck with everything.
Thank you. Thank you, Neha. Thank you, Kaden. Thank you to our listeners for tuning in to today's episode as well. We appreciate you guys. If y'all have suggestions on a round 2, let us know. We'll see you guys on the next episode of Leaders Unfiltered.